Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For this video, I'll be talking through how I created my galaxy glass look. It was inspired by a trip I took with my son's class to a local church, and also the chest was based partly on a picture of a tattoo that I saw on Pinterest. The first step is to make the 3D transfer, and to do that you need to sketch out the design that you want. In this case I used an old tile. And then I sculpted the design using some oil-based clay. 3D transfers can't be too thick, so probably about half a centimetre is probably ideal. You can go thicker. The thicker it is, the longer it's going to take to dehydrate and be ready. Once you have the shape perfected in the oil-based clay, you then make the mould. So the first ring of clay around the sculpture will be the overflow channel, and then you need a higher ring of clay to be the mould edge. Next you need to mix up your Pinkysil silicone mix. It's a 1:1 ratio, so just add one amount of the white to one amount of the pink, stirring to make sure it's well mixed. And then pour into the mould at a height so as you don't get too many bubbles. I then left that to set for about half an hour, and then I removed all the oil-based clay for us to then have the silicone mould ready for our transfer medium. To make the transfer medium, I just use some Prosiade poured into a container and add a scoop or two of the Cabosil silicone fibres, which thickens the Prosiade up to be like a toothpaste consistency. I then add some flocking, red and blue, not necessary, but if you want to make it a bit more skin textured, and then a little bit of Nyx Foundation to add a skin colour. I then get a piece of acetate, marking which side is the side with the release, and you can check which side has this release on it by marking it with a texter, and it will bead up on the side that has the release product on it. And then using a lollipop stick or a tongue suppressor, you want to spread the transfer mix into the mould. Once you've spread enough of the mix onto the mould, place the acetate on with the release side down and use a clean popsicle stick to glide over and spread the transfer mix evenly. The excess will flow into the overflow channel. Do it gently, not too hard, otherwise you'll squeeze too much out of the mould. Now pop that in the freezer for about half an hour, but you can leave it in there for as long as you like. And then flip it onto a flat surface and gently remove the silicone mould from the acetate, and then gently remove the excess by scraping it. You then need to leave the transfer to dehydrate for a couple of days, depending upon how thick the transfer that you've made actually is. But for now we'll move on to the painting. I start by marking out the center point of the piece on my chest with a dark brown body paint, and just marking out the design generally of where everything will go. I realised after marking it out that I should have used white to make it easier for myself, but live and learn. It's meant to replicate the stained glass windows that you find in churches. I always love the almost gothic look to them, and when the sun shines through, it's just so pretty. So once I've got the general shape right, I then started making the lines thicker with the white, going over the brown body paint. Again, I could have made it easier for myself by just starting with the white, but my normal process is to start sketching with a skin coloured or a brown coloured body paint to make it easier to go over. Old habits die hard, I guess. Next I started adding the colours of the galaxy in the piece I started with magenta, then light blue, and then dark blue, water activated body paint. No rhyme or reason for the placement, just where I thought the colours would sort of look nice and give a galaxy swirly sort of feel. I also added light pink and black into the mix, and also a bit of white in there as well. Just use that same technique of blotching in colours until all the glass area is filled in. I then used a damp sponge to gently blend the colours together. I don't want them to be a mishmash of colours. I want the colours still to be vibrant, but just have a softening of the colours. I used a damp cloth to wipe away the smudges and excess paint from outside of the glass area. I then used a white paint to put in some dots to represent the stars. Again, randomly placed. And I also went over the line work to make the white a bit more crisp. Next, I added bigger blobs of white and smudged it out with my finger to be a little bit more like galaxies or starbursts, or I don't know, it kind of looked cool. And then I used a black water activated paint to add in some lines around, adding shadows and depth to the glass window. I then went back with the white water activated paint to add more detail to the window, including the circle middle. I was referencing several church windows for this, so it's a sort of a mishmash of different images. Using the white water activated paint, I just kept adding the different panes and the details of the glass window structure, trying to keep everything symmetrical and uniform so it looks like a window that you would see in a church. I then used a large brush and the Mehron Paradise AQ in white to fill in around the design. I tried to even out the paint and get it smoothly applied, but I wasn't too stressed about it because I knew that I was going to go over with the stone marbling effect, which would disguise some of the unevenness of the paint. I then outlined the design in black water activated paint. I then added the texture of the marbling with a grey water activated paint and a thin brush, just in squiggly lines, and dabbed over the top with white water activated paint on a sponge to soften it. I then added glue stick to my brows to protect them and moved on to the 3D transfer that had been dehydrating for a couple of days. You'll notice the 3D transfer I'm holding has a paper on one side of it. I just added the Monster Maker paper, which has a release on it, to the dehydrated piece. Application of the transfer is pretty simple. You just place it where you'd want to apply it and use a wet flannel to press it onto your skin. I then used the Mehron Paradise AQ white to fill in around the transfer and over my face, and used a grey Mehron paint to add some contouring. Then added some more marbling effect to my face using the same technique and the grey water activated paint. I used a sponge and the white water activated paint to soften the effect. The NYX Jumbo pencil in milk on the waterline of my eyes, and then added some shading to the 3D transfer using some NYX eyeshadows. I then went over the transfer with a white water activated paint to bring out the 3D effect. I then used a black eyeshadow to deepen the shadows and contours of my face and neck and collarbone, just to add a bit of 3D depth to the look. I then added my eyelashes off screen. And finished by adding my flower headpiece, which I borrowed from my daughter. Shh, don't tell her. And that is the total look. I hope this tutorial was helpful. If you've got any questions about any of the process, just message me or put a comment below and I'll try to answer. There's a lot of information in this video and it's hard to sort of explain everything quickly, but let me know what you think and I'll see if I can help you. So until next time, bye.